And thank you very much. We are back in the air again with Wise on Air here from Doha. It's really been an amazing journey thus far, and I have had the opportunity speaking to amazing people, creative people, education leaders, and people who really represent the future. And I'm very happy to have one and next to me for another interview. Thank you so much to Zuriel Oduwole. I hope I pronounced that okay. For making some time available to talk to me. You are a filmmaker and very exceptional about what it is that you're doing. You started at the very young age of 9 years old in making films, and you're still going strong at the age of 19, if I'm correct. Um, yeah, you're an absolute force of nature. And let's start with your message, because I watched a lot of your videos and interviews. You have the message that you can be anything you want to be as long as you believe in yourself. Uh, well, I mean, it almost speaks for itself, but I'm going to ask you to comment on that.
Yeah, so with all the work that I've done, whether it's filmmaking, being a girls' education advocate, presidential advisor, working on climate change, all the stuff that I've done from the age of 9 up till now has truly shown me that another cliche saying, but like age is just a number, you know? I had this, I wouldn't say dream, but I had this passion and this drive when I was young. Like you said, it started when I was 9. I made my first film as part of a school competition. It was a documentary. And I went to Ghana to film parts of the scene because Ghana was the focus of this film. And while I was there, this was the first time. You can imagine like a little 9-year-old kid. You see things on the news, but it's just on the news. It's in passing. Like it doesn't really resonate with you. But to be in Ghana and actually see kids who were just like me, my age, out on the streets instead of being in school and getting an education, that affected me in a way. And that's where I got my drive and my passion from, to do this work in girls' education advocacy. So when I say you can do anything that you want as long as you believe in yourself, it's also as long as you believe in the dreams that you have and you have a dream that's big enough to go out there and impact other people as well. When I met, as part of the work I do, I meet with world leaders as well to talk about policies in their countries for girls' education. And one of the leaders that I met was President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf of Liberia. And when I met with her, she has this saying. She says that if your dreams don't scare you, then they're not big enough.
Yeah.
So that's what I apply in the work that I do, and that's what I encourage others to apply to as well, with whatever passion that they have for life.
Yeah. Beautiful. There's a lot in there. I'm thinking because at 9 years old, it's very special and I think unique that you started making film there. You went to Ghana, and then when you were in Ghana, you did not only um, capture the life of the children there, but you also got to speak to two former presidents there, right? That's how it started. Speaking to heads of state. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And that gave you, am I also correct to assume that gave you the idea to speak to more world leaders at that moment?
Yeah, so when I first met with these world leaders, I was meeting with them. First, I wanted to talk to them about the topic of my film, which was the Ghana Revolution. Both of them being Ghanaian presidents. They understood the revolution, they lived through it, and they saw the change it made to their country. But then when I met with them, this was after I had seen kids out on the streets instead of being in school. And when I saw that, I asked both of them in separate meetings, I asked, like, I see this issue here. Like, why is that? Why aren't these kids in school getting an education? And that's where I, for the first time, heard someone who obviously sees this going on in their country talk about the issue of girls' education, children's education, but especially girls' education, and why they're not in school. So when I heard that, I said, well, what can be done about it? Like, I wanted to find out from them. I wanted to see what they could do, what I could do as well. And so from that, I realized that it's not the kids' fault that they're not in school. You know, there are policies in place, laws in place, societal reasons. And so to address it, you have to talk to those who are making and implementing the policies. And so that's why I started speaking to world leaders. I've been doing that since I was 9. I've met, I think, about 31 world leaders now, and mostly beyond the African continent. So countries like Egypt, Tanzania, Malawi, but also I've met with world leaders in the Caribbean region as well, because they face similar issues with regards to out of school children and out of school girls. So I've met with the prime ministers of countries like Jamaica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yeah. Um, So two questions. One is around the medium of film.
Mhm.
So, well, first of all, it started with a school competition. Did you win the school competition? That was just
That's
one thing.
that's actually a question I don't get asked a lot. I can't even
Okay.
remember the last time I was asked that. So props to you. So I entered the competition 2 years back to back.
Okay.
The first year I was 9. That's when I made the documentary on the gun revolution. That's where all this started. I won the first round, but this is like my first film. I was 9. I was barely learning how to edit, put things together, voiceovers, like terrible audio and things like that. But I learned from it. And so a year later, I re-entered the competition. This time, the topic was turning points in history. So I focused on the formation of the 1963 Organization of African Unity. It's now called the African Union.
Yeah.
And so that was the topic of that film. I entered it, and this time got past round 1, and I won one of the largest counties in the United States.
There you go.
I-
There you go, Zuriel. You should have won the first time around. You know, they made
I
a
tried.
mistake.
I
They made a
tried.
mistake at age 9. No, but that's of course amazing. What drove you to the medium of film? Because that's that you in one of your interviews you say there's power to film.
Mhm.
I 100% agree with you. But what is that power?
So again, all goes back to this first competition.
Yeah.
When we entered, you had a couple of different ways you could tell the story. You could write an essay, you could do like a play or a skit, or you could create a documentary.
Yeah.
Now, I was doing this project by myself, so I was one person. To do a skit and like play those characters, I was like, okay, put that to the side. And then I was left with either writing an essay or doing a film. And as a kid myself, you watch TV, you watch family movies, you see that film visuals do something different than just reading a bunch of words on a piece of paper. So I chose documentary filmmaking. And when I made that first film and I brought it back to the US to show people, I realized that sometimes just hearing about something doesn't do the same thing as if you actually see it with your own eyes. And that can
Yeah.
be about anything.
Yeah.
I know when I first brought this film back, on the African continent, of course, whenever they talk about it on the news, a lot of times it's about things like disease, famine, corruption, things like that. They don't showcase a lot of positive things. When I brought it back, like questions that or surprise that I got from people like, wow, they have nice hotels there, or they have malls. Like they were shocked because that's not what they see, and
Yeah.
because they don't see those things, they don't believe it. So
Yeah.
I learned, wow, seeing is believing. You have
Yeah.
to see these things in order to understand it.
Yeah.
And then with issues like girls' education, sometimes it takes people actually seeing, whether you're there on the ground in person or watching an in-depth documentary about a certain issue for you to truly understand it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not enough to just pick up a magazine article or a newspaper article and read about it and then hope that hits something in you.
Yeah. Yeah. I really love that what you say, seeing is believing, which is 100% true, but also that people start getting into it once there's a pattern of recognition. So once they can identify, like, oh, the hotels are there, or they also drink this or eat that, or hey, and then once there's a similarity, they might get more into the story or more into the situation. And that testifies to how strong that is, strong such a medium. And also, yes, you're right. I think if you want to convey something with having strong images, having strong pictures works.
Mhm.
I think a lot better than if you blog about it. Like if it's a blog post with words, whereby you would still ask people to have the focus to read it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and yeah. So that's just our sometimes lazy human nature that works better. You have made thus far 9 movies. Is that okay? Is that correct? How many films have you
I
made?
think 8 now.
8 now. There we
Yeah,
go.
close enough though. Close
8,
enough.
yeah,
You're
8.
predicting my next film.
You're predicting that. So, how have you evolved as a filmmaker? And what let's talk about your latest project. What was it about, and what was the experience like for you?
Mhm. Well, with everything, you learn as you go along. And I always say, like, you never stop learning. No matter how many years you have at something, you're going to learn something different some point down the line. And like I said, when I was 9 years old, that first competition, first round, didn't get much further because not at all experienced in filmmaking, editing, all those types of things. But now that I'm 19, I won't call myself an expert still. I have so much to learn. But I now understand and I now can do certain things with my filmmaking, like through the lens of my camera, I like to call it, that can capture stories in a certain way that when I was much younger, I didn't fully understand that or grasp the meaning of it. Like just with basic editing now, like I've come a long way. I can now do much better voiceovers, narrations. I write my own scripts, edit, direct everything by myself. And with camera work, I kind of film things differently. Like I picture what I want people to see,
Yeah.
and then I go out and capture that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have like a written script, like you have to follow it, et cetera, et cetera. But if I see something, I'm like, people need to see this.
Yeah.
I capture that and then I turn it into a film.
Yeah.
My most recent film, so I have two that came out similar times. One of them was for Nelson Mandela's 100th birthday. I think it came out 2018 now. Yeah, he turned 100, or he would have turned 100 back in 2018, basically to honor his legacy and his memory. And then another short film that I created most recently it was for Black History Month back in the U.S. I basically went to Senegal because Senegal has this place called Gorée Island, and it was the last port for slave trade. So slaves would come here, and then from there they go to the U.S., to the Caribbean, to wherever it is they're going to end up. And so I basically went there to film this story again, because sometimes you have to see it more than just hearing it.
Yeah.
And I filmed the story about what happens to them while they're there, and created that into like a short film to take back home for Black History Month in the U.S.
Yeah. And how long does it take you on average to create a film from A to Z?
It depends, first of all, on how long the film.
Yeah.
Short films
Short
are
films.
different from feature films.
Yeah.
Feature films do take time.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, or the thing that takes the most time, is getting the footage.
Yeah.
You're not going to go out one day and get everything that you want and then
Yeah.
make the film that way. So that does take time. But because of like just how I think when I make films, because I already have an idea of how I want it to look, the finished product, the editing process has become a lot more quicker for me. So
Yeah.
short films can take me tops maybe a month.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta go out and film. That's the longest thing. And maybe in a week, if I know what I want it to look like, I can
Yeah.
edit that thing and be done with it.
Yeah.
But feature films, like I think the longest I've taken to make a film, it was one that I made when I was 14. I started shooting it during the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. Basically, this is about girls' education. So I got 2 soccer balls because the whole world was focused on soccer. And I went to 5 different countries across 3 continents, and I got different people to sign the ball saying they signed in support of girls' education.
Yeah.
So first of all, just that travel took a couple of months in different countries. And then at that time, I was still learning how to balance schoolwork with extracurriculars. So it kind of took, I think, 2 years to make that one. That's the longest I've ever spent on a film, though. But now I've become a lot more proficient in balancing, and like it's a lot quicker now.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds also you needed a lot of buy-in of everyone signing on it and whatever. So that might have delayed things, or might have taken a little bit longer. So I mean, you speak elaborately about you as a filmmaker, and then in a 2019 interview for Jamaican television, you shared that you actually have the ambition to become president of the United States. So I was like, yeah, but what about filmmaking? or is it a combined career? So sorry, no, I don't mean to put you on the spot. It's great, of course, wanting to become president, but would you like to become a politician or a filmmaker?
It's a good. Wow, I can't believe you guys found that footage. No, when I've been speaking about, I think I first talked about being president of the United States when I was 10. So that was like 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And the reason why I talked about that is because wherever I do, I always want to make change. And being the leader of a country, like the U.S., for example, you can not only positively affect the people in your own country, make policies to affect the people in your country, but also you serve as an example to other countries, and you can show them the importance of different areas and why it's important to do policies a certain way or focus on certain issues. And so the different things that I do, this filmmaking, there's girls' education advocacy. Girls' education advocacy will never go away. So if I run for president and become president, then girls' education advocacy will still be a thing on my mind, because unless it's all completely equal, like there's equity in education by then, it's still something to talk about, no matter what your position is, because you can still make a difference. With filmmaking, honestly, we will have to see. I don't know. I'm still 19. I've got time to figure it all out, but we'll see.
You've got loads of time. But I was also thinking about, are you planning to go to university, or do you want to kind of get further education, and if so, is that going to be in the arts, in the filmmaking, or is it going to be completely something different?
That's a good question. I'm already in university.
Oh, you're already in university. Oh, I'm so sorry. So
no worries.
What are you? So you are in U.S. in university. So there are minors and majors and stuff like that.
Yeah,
correct?
it's a bit different. Yeah. I go to UCLA, and
Okay.
My major priority focus is cognitive science. So that has to do with artificial intelligence, psychology, and how it all relates to people. But then also I've been focusing on public affairs as well, just because of the work that I do that plays in so well. But yeah, that's why I've been studying.
Okay, you're already in university, and then for your for advancing, you're still figuring that out.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
still
of course,
figure
and
that
you
out.
should, and you should. And sorry to put you on the spot. Like you need to know, you don't need to know at all, at all. I would like to go back to kind of your experience meeting with heads of states
Mhm.
and presidents, because it's so inspiring and so joyful to see you sitting with all these heads of state, and also John Kerry you've met, and just sitting down with them. And then when you were 9, you're of course a little girl sitting there next to, so they look very endearing, of course, to you. And but
Mhm.
what is it like to meet them? And did you feel you got your point across, or is it more like a photo op opportunity for them? What is it like, such a meeting?
No, I think with the world leaders I've met, they have taken me seriously.
Yeah.
Whenever I meet with them and I reach out to their offices, I'm always straight up front. I'm like, this is who I am. This is what I do, girls' education advocacy. Here's why it's important that we should talk about the issue of girls' education in your country.
Mhm.
And they do take it seriously. I know there's been some examples. I met President Chikai Kikwete of Tanzania. This was back in 2013. So at the time, the United Nations had their Millennium Development Goals, and one of them was universal primary education enrollment should be 100% in every country in the world. So I went to go meet with him and said, like, this is the goal. This is where we're supposed to be, like 2 years from now. How are you guys doing towards that goal, and what different things can we do to make sure the kids in your country reach that goal?
Yeah.
And so I spoke with him, and then I think 6 months later, I want to say, he invited me back to his country to actually go on the ground and see schools that he had built, like newer schools he's building to create
Wow.
more opportunities for kids to have access to the education and programs he's put in place. And then I know more recent example. In 2018, so I was 16 now, I met with President Felipe in UC of Mozambique. I met him in Maputo to talk about the issue, again, of girls' education, but also girl marriage. Because in this country, according to UNICEF, they had one of the highest rates of girl marriage.
Yeah.
So I went to go and talk to him about this and say, first show myself as an example of what an educated girl can do, but then also say that you have to allow your girls to go to school and not get married at young ages, because that robs them of an education.
Sure. Yeah.
And then, so I first met him 2018, and then I think 16 months later, so in July 2019, after that first meeting, Mozambique formally outlawed girl marriage in the country after
Yeah.
decades of practice. So I
Yeah.
do think that these meetings, it's not like photo op opportunities; like they take it very seriously, and they
Yeah.
also take action
Yeah.
On what we've talked about.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'm very happy, and thank you for flying that flag, and thank you for putting that on their agenda, and to ensure that people like yourself, that they're listening, and they're watching, and credits to those who have invited you to follow on, yeah, right, to demonstrate the work that they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've also started something called the Dususu Award. Am I pronouncing that
Yeah,
correctly?
Disusu. Mm-hmm.
Susu, and that's an award given to African first ladies, but also gender ministers.
Yes.
And what gave you the idea to do that? Where did that start?
So through my girls' education advocacy work, I realized that presidents and prime ministers are not the only ones that can make a difference or, create change in their countries. There's also other positions, one of them being the first lady, and then another one being gender ministers, because they have important roles to play. One, as leaders, like first ladies are women leaders in the country, and also gender ministers who do work in creating equality between girls and boys in their countries, like in areas of education, for example.
Yeah.
So I realized that there's presidents and prime ministers, but there's also first ladies and gender ministers who can play an important role in creating equality in education between girls and boys in their countries. So I started the awards to recognize first ladies and gender ministers who were doing a lot in the areas of girls' education and gender development in their countries. So I think I started that in 2014. We've been going almost 7 years now. We've been giving out the awards to the first ladies of Tanzania, Kenya, Namibia, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and also gender ministers of countries like Rwanda and Mauritius, just again to recognize the work that they've done and also encourage other leaders as well, other gender ministers and other first ladies, to do work on the issue of girls' education as well.
Good, good. So it's kind of an advocacy tool to kind of acknowledge them, and to also demonstrate the good work they're doing. So
And
to
encourage
showcase
more of that
Yeah,
work as well
yeah.
from others.
Yeah, very good, very inventive, and I hope it keeps on working. I think it's a very good a good approach, bringing all these people together. What would you want to say to other strong, creative, smart young women like yourself, who also want to get into filmmaking? What would be your message to them?
I think, well, first, it's like a very general message, like to anything in life. Filmmaking, if you want to become a doctor, pilot, coder, engineer, whatever it is. I think, first of all, it's like the definition of success and being a successful person. To me, at least, I would say that a successful person is not someone who never fails, because that's, you just hardly see that happening. But a successful person is someone who fails but then gets back up every
Yeah.
single time. And part of that is having a drive and a passion for what it is you want to do. It goes back to what I was saying earlier about having big dreams. And like, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. So
Yeah.
if it's filmmaking, if it's any other passion, I think one is to dream big with it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, don't limit yourself to something small. Dream big with that idea. But then also, with a lot of things in life, they don't come easy. Like, it would
Yeah.
take some work, it would take some resilience, but honestly, if you put everything you have into it, then you can become very successful in whatever it is that you choose to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So go for it. Get out there and make it work, and
Mhm.
be resilient. Be
Yeah,
prepared
you have
to
to be. Hmm.
be prepared to fail. Be prepared to encounter some challenges. But if you
Yeah,
stick
but
your
then get
mind to
back
it,
up every single
yeah,
time. Hmm.
yeah. Well, that's a beautiful message. Now let's turn the tables. So
Okay.
this is your Wise on Air.
Okay, I'm
Who-
interviewing you now.
Well, not me. You can choose your guest, because I don't want to impose. I don't want to put myself on the spot if you don't think I'm interesting. No, but who would you like to interview?
Aside from you.
Aside from me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think someone who I say would have wanted to interview, because he passed away a couple
Mm.
years ago, probably would have been Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Just because I've always been curious, I've always wanted to ask the question, like, after like 27 years of like people wronging him in like most interesting ways, like how he managed to come out and still have peace about it and still forgive them for everything that they did.
Yeah, Nelson Mandela. Yeah, that's a beautiful beautiful choice. Yeah, and yeah. Well, I ask this question more times in interviews, and often it becomes a séance rather than a podcast, because people have passed, unfortunately. But I can get that completely. And then looking at books or media or any type of reading that has inspired you in your journey.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you would like to share, that you would like to say, hey, this is something that really inspired me? Is there anything you'd like to mention?
For books, let me think. I think maybe I'd have to say the Bible.
Mm.
Like, very simple answer, simple explanation as well. It just has so much wisdom in it about
Yeah.
being kindness, about giving back to others, and about peace and joy. And I think that there's like so much wisdom in there. It's inspiring. It's inspired me throughout my journey and still continues to inspire me.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's good. So, and kind of, and in terms of, is there any kind of newspaper you read, or any article, or any website you check, kind of for filmmakers, or anything more?
For filmmaking, no, not really. I think
Okay.
again, filmmaking, I've been so self-taught that I've been used to just
Go
figuring it
everywhere.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, YouTube, Google,
Yeah.
how it is.
Wherever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The
Things that,
easiest things to
yeah,
find.
that could train you yourself. Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow, this has been an amazing interview, Zuriel. You were, as I said before, you're an absolute force of nature. 19 years old, and already such an enormous track record. And undoubtedly, we're going to hear a lot and a lot more from you. I wish you all the very, very best on your
Thank you.
path. And yeah, come back anytime. I hope to be speaking to you again for Wise 2023.
That'd be
Um,
great. I can
and,
interview you that time.
and you can interview me that
Yes,
time.
we'll turn
Yes,
the
yes.
tables. Hmm.
If you have anything to ask me. Thank you so much for your time, Zuriel Oduwole.
Oduwole. Close
Oduwole.
enough. You're getting
Oduwole.
it. We'll discuss
Zuriel
after. Don't worry.
Oduwole. Thank you so much.